stretch of a small coastal town where the last street lights faded into dunes and seagrass. There was a harbor that most people only noticed during the day. Boats rocked in gentle rows, fishermen called to one another, and gulls drew bright white circles in the blue air. But this story is not about the harbor everyone saw, but Soft Whisper. It's about the harbor that appeared only at night, slower, when the town had gone to sleep and the world felt as if it were holding its breath. Long pause 1.2. Eli discovered it by accident. Quiet tone. He wasn't a sailor or a fisherman. He didn't even live especially close to the water. Eli lived in an ordinary apartment above a laundromat, with a squeaky ceiling fan and a window that faced the parking lot. Tired, slower pace. He worked all day at a busy office, answering emails, attending meetings that went on too long, and staring at a screen until his eyes felt heavy and dry. And lately, no matter how tired he was, sleep just wouldn't come. Short pause. Every night felt the same. He would lie in bed, listening to the hum of the fan, counting slow breaths, scrolling through his phone even though he knew it didn't help. Worries tiptoed into his thoughts. Did he say the right thing in that meeting? Did he forget to reply to someone important? Had he used his time the way he wanted to? Whisper-like. The questions were small, but at night they seemed bigger, as if shadows were stretching them across the walls. Long pause 1.2. One Thursday, after another long day and another stubborn, restless evening, Eli gave up on sleep. Soft, gentle, he slipped on a hoodie, grabbed his keys, and stepped quietly into the hallway. The building was silent. Short pause. Somewhere, a television murmured behind a door, but mostly, the world felt wrapped in a soft, dark blanket. Outside, the air was cool and smelled faintly of salt. Slower. The town wasn't far from the ocean, and on certain nights, the wind carried the sea all the way up to the parking lot. Eli took a deep breath and started to walk, letting his feet choose the direction. His phone stayed in his pocket. The streetlights made little halos on the pavement. He passed the closed coffee shop, the dark windows of the bookstore, the empty benches on the corner. Short, soft pause. When he reached the end of Main Street, he saw two paths, one that led back toward his apartment, and one he didn't usually take, a narrow road sloping gently downward toward the water. Soft inhale, then slower. He hesitated for only a moment, then turned toward the sea. Long pause. The further he walked, the quieter, warm, gentle male voice speaks slowly and smoothly, as if telling a soft bedtime story. Maintain a relaxed, comforting tone with subtle emotional depth. Allow natural pauses between meaningful moments. Avoid sharp emphasis. Keep the narration steady, soothing, and slightly introspective, with a feeling of quiet night atmosphere and gentle wonder. The further he walked, the quieter the town became. Houses thinned out and gave way to patches of dune grass, softly whispering in the breeze. The moon hung low and heavy, casting a silver trail across the dark water. Eli could hear the slow, steady hush of waves, arriving and withdrawing, like the ocean was breathing in its sleep. He had been to the harbor during daylight, of course. It was the kind of place you took pictures of on sunny weekends, with bright boats, colorful buoys, and a snack stand selling ice cream. At night, he expected it to be a simple collection of shadows and shapes, still and silent. But when he reached the last curve in the road, something was different. The harbor was glowing. Not brightly, nothing sharp or blinding, but with a soft, golden light that seemed to rise from the water itself. The docks, which he remembered as plain wood, now looked smooth and polished, as if they'd been carefully tended for years. Lanterns hung from curved posts, gently swaying. Each lantern held a tiny, steady flame that didn't flicker even when the wind picked up. And the boats were unusual. Instead of fishing vessels and small motorboats, the harbor was filled with boats of impossible shapes. Some were little more than wide, shallow bowls, big enough for a single person curled comfortably with a blanket. Others looked like small houses resting on flat decks, with warm lights glowing in their windows. One boat in the center of the harbor had a tree growing from its middle, its branches lit with quiet silver stars. Eli blinked and rubbed his eyes. For a moment, he wondered if he had finally fallen asleep while walking. And this was the kind of dream that felt so real you didn't know you were dreaming. Then, from just to his right, a calm voice said, turned and saw an elderly woman sitting on a small bench near the start of the pier. She wore a dark blue coat and a knitted hat pulled down over her ears. Her hair, what he could see of it, was silver white and long, braided into one neat plait drifting over her shoulder. Her eyes were bright and kind, like someone who had spent many years watching waves and never grew tired of them. "I couldn't sleep," Eli said, because that was the simplest truth. "I didn't know this place looked like this at night." "It doesn't," she replied. "Not for everyone, just for those who need it." She tilted her head slightly, as if listening to something only she could hear. "You've been carrying too many thoughts to bed lately, haven't you?" Eli let out a short, breathy laugh. "You could say that." The woman gestured toward the harbor with a small, knowing smile. "This is the night harbor of quiet dreams. It comes when the town grows very still, and someone has more worries than rest. People find their way here when they're ready to set some of those burdens down for a while." Long pause. Eli considered this. It sounded impossible, like something out of an old storybook, the kind his grandmother used to read to him when he was little. And yet, the soft glow of the lanterns, the gentle rocking of the boats, and the cool night air all felt very real. "If this is a harbor," he said, "then the boats go somewhere." "Of course they do," the woman replied. "Each one knows where to take its passenger, not across the world, only across the night." She stood up, a little creakiness in her movement, and nodded toward the wooden pier. "Come, let's find your boat." Walked side by side along the dock. The water below them was dark but calm, almost like a sheet of glass that had learned how to breathe. Reflections of lanterns shimmered gently on the surface. As they passed, Eli could see that each boat had a small, polished plaque near its bow. On one boat, shaped like a leaf, the plaque read, "For those who miss someone far away." On another, a narrow, elegant vessel with a soft canopy, the plaque said, "For those who keep too many secrets in their hearts." They passed a boat with soft pillows piled high and blankets folded neatly. Its plaque read, "For tired new parents." It rocked just a little more than the others, as if it were already soothing someone invisible back to sleep. Eli slowed down, reading each plaque one by one. "How do they know?" he asked. "The boats listen," the woman said softly. "People forget how much the world hears when we say 'I'm fine' all day and only tell the truth to the ceiling at night." Long pause. They walked further. The harbor seemed larger than it had any right to be. More piers branched out like spokes from a wheel, and boats nestled in every slip, from tiny wooden skiffs to small floating cottages with chimneys whispering faint puffs of scented smoke. Finally, they reached a boat that made Eli stop. It was simple, not grand, not unusual, just a sturdy little deck with a low bench and a railing around the sides. A lantern hung at the front, glowing warmly. A folded blanket waited on the bench, the same soft gray as storm clouds right before they turn harmless and light. The plaque on the bow read, "For those who worry about everything at once." Eli exhaled, a breath leaving him as if he had been holding it for days. "That sounds about right," he said quietly. The woman nodded gently. "A very common condition," she said. "Step aboard if you like. The night is just right for a small boat." Eli stepped carefully onto the boat. It didn't rock or tilt. It simply accepted his weight, as if it had been waiting only for him. The wood felt pleasantly warm beneath his shoes, not like it had been resting under moonlight, but sun. "Will you come with me?" he asked the woman, his voice quiet, almost hopeful. She shook her head with a warm, patient smile. "I only make introductions," she said. "The boats and the night do the rest. But I'll be here when you return." Her answer made him feel unexpectedly safe. He sat on the bench and unfolded the blanket. It settled across his legs with comforting weight, soft, warm, steady, like whisper-like, like someone placing a gentle hand over his worries. The lantern at the bow flickered, not as if it were going out, but as if it had just taken a deeper breath. And then, quietly, the boat began to move. There was no engine, no oars dipping into the water. The boat simply drifted away from the dock, as if carried by an invisible current that knew exactly where to go. The lanterns along the pier fell behind him, glowing softly, like fireflies resting on the surface of the water. Eli leaned back and let the gentle motion rock him, slow, steady, like being cradled by the night itself. The sounds of the town faded completely. All he could hear was the quiet glide of water against the hull, and somewhere far above, the faint call of a night bird. Ahead, the horizon looked like a line drawn between two dreams, the dark sea below, the star-filled sky above. Eli let his shoulders relax. For the first time in many nights, his jaw softened, his breath eased, and the tension in his chest loosened just a little. Long, soothing pause. The boat slipped further into the night. For a while, Eli noticed the sky was changing. The stars, which had been scattered randomly like grains of salt, began to drift into gentle, shimmering patterns. At first, he thought he was imagining it, but the shapes became clearer. Some stars gathered into soft, curving lines that looked like waves. Others formed the outline of a chair, a book, a cup of tea. Quiet pause. More shapes appeared. A small house with a warm window, a swing set, the shadow of a tall tree with a low branch perfect for leaning against. Slower, dreaming. Each shape glowed softly before drifting apart again into scattered starlight. Soft pause. These are familiar, Eli murmured, without quite knowing how he knew. Long pause. They should be, said a new voice, comfortable and warm, like a favorite sweater. Soft smile in the tone. Eli looked up. Sitting on the railing at the front of the boat was a cat. A plump, relaxed-looking cat with gray fur and calm green eyes. Its tail swayed gently, perfectly balanced despite the rocking of the boat. Soft pause. You can talk? Eli said, not surprised, not confused, just accepting, as one does in soft and quiet dreams. Only when someone actually listens, the cat replied, whisper-like, comforting. Don't worry, I'm good company on night journeys. Too much silence can make your thoughts louder. We're trying to soften them, not sharpen them. Long, soothing pause. Eli smiled. Slow, tired, but real. Who are you? I am, the cat began, pausing thoughtfully, as if selecting the gentlest possible answer. Slower. A guardian of small thoughts and small dreams. The big ones already have plenty of attention. It's the tiny, drifting ones that need someone to keep them company. The cat nodded toward the sky. Those shapes you're seeing are pieces of your evenings, little moments you passed by without noticing. A soft chair you almost sat in, a book you meant to open, a cup of tea you thought about making but didn't. Soft pause. They're all still here, waiting like friendly stars. Long pause. Eli watched as a new pattern formed. His apartment window, his squeaky ceiling fan, turned into a slow, glowing pinwheel in the sky. Softer, dreamy. It looked kinder, gentler, than it ever did when he stared at it, waiting for sleep. Slow breath-like pause. I always feel like I didn't do enough today, he whispered. Like I wasted time somehow, or forgot something important. And at night, my mind just replays everything. Slow, painful pause. The cat nodded, as if hearing this 1,000 times from 1,000 tired hearts. Ah, the never-enough trap. Whisper-like, empathetic. Very common. But tell me, human, if someone you loved came to you and said, I feel like I didn't do enough today, would you list all the things they did wrong? Or all the things they did right? Soft, penetrating pause. Eli thought about that. I guess I'd remind them of what they did do. Tell them it was okay to be tired, that tomorrow is another chance. The cat's whiskers twitched, pleased. Interesting how kind you are. Yet, somehow, you misplace that kindness whenever it comes to yourself. Long, soothing pause. The words settled into Eli like smooth stones dropped gently into still water, spreading soft ripples through his body. The boat drifted farther, and the harbor lights disappeared completely behind them. Ahead, the sea became dotted with tiny glowing objects, small glass bottles, each one shimmering faintly from within. As they drew closer, Eli saw that each bottle held a tiny piece of paper, curled gently like a sleeping fern. What are those? He asked quietly. Unfinished worries, the cat replied. Half thoughts. What if I embarrass myself? What if I'm not doing enough? What if they're upset with me? They drift around until someone sees them clearly. Once seen, many of them shrink. Long, soothing pause. The boat glided toward one glowing bottle. The light inside it flickered softly, like a small, uncertain heartbeat. Go on, said the cat. Pick it up. Soft encouragement. Eli leaned over carefully and scooped the bottle from the water. It was warm in his hand. He uncorked it slowly, and the tiny slip of paper unwound and grew, just enough for him to read. It said, "What if I am too late to make my life how I want it to be?" Long, emotional pause. His throat tightened. The words weren't exactly his, and yet they felt uncomfortably familiar, like a quiet fear he had carried for years without naming. That one's heavy, he murmured softly. They all feel heavy, the cat replied, with a kindness that felt almost like a hand on his shoulder. But look closer. Eli watched as the writing on the paper slowly faded, and new words appeared, written in a calmer, steadier hand. I can only live one day at a time. Tonight is for resting, not deciding everything forever. Long, comforting pause. Eli felt something shift inside him, a loosening, small but real. He didn't know who had written the new words, but they felt like something he could believe for at least a little while. And sometimes a little while was enough to begin feeling different. Can I let it go? He asked, almost whispering. Of course, said the cat gently. That's why you came. Soothing tone. Eli rolled the paper and placed it back inside the bottle. When he set it on the water again, It glowed a little brighter, then slowly sank beneath the surface, not like something lost, but something returned to where it belonged. Long, peaceful pause. They drifted on through the field of faintly glowing bottles. Eli didn't open them all. He didn't need to. Just seeing them, knowing they were there, and knowing they didn't need to be solved all at once was strangely comforting. Quiet pause. The worries were real, but they did not move. They continued on. The sky above them softened, and the stars seemed closer now, like gentle eyes watching over the water. Eli's eyelids grew heavier, but in a peaceful way, not the frustrated exhaustion he felt in his bedroom night after night. After a while, the cat spoke again. "Tell me," it said softly, "what was one small, good thing that happened to you today?" The question surprised him. He'd been so focused on what he hadn't done that the day had become a blur of incompleteness. He thought for a moment. "The barista at the coffee shop remembered my order," he said. "She wrote, 'Have a good day, Eli,' on the cup, with a little smiley face." The cat's eyes warmed. That's a star." "A star?" Eli repeated quietly. "In your sky," the cat explained. "Close your eyes for a moment. Whisper-like, gentle." Eli closed his eyes. The boat rocked beneath him like a slow, sleepy heartbeat. The blanket was warm, the night breeze cool, everything balanced perfectly. "In your mind," the cat continued softly, "imagine today as a big, dark sky. Now, place that moment, the barista remembering your name, the little smiley face, up in that sky. Not to erase the hard things, but to give them company, whisper level, very calmly." Eli pictured it. The warm coffee cup, his name, the kindness of being remembered. He placed it gently in the sky of his mind, a bright, steady point of light. "Now," the cat said, "think of one more small, good thing. It doesn't have to be perfect, just something that was okay." He searched his memory. "The sunset," he whispered. "I was walking from the bus stop, and the sky turned orange and pink. I almost took a picture, but I just looked at it instead." "Excellent," purred the cat. "Another star. Very soft, warm." Eli placed that moment too, in the sky of his mind, a tiny shining point beside the barista's smile. Together, they made the darkness less heavy. "You can keep adding stars like that," the cat said gently. "Not to pretend the hard things don't exist, but to remember they are not the only things that do." Long, comforting pause. Eli opened his eyes slowly. Above him, the real sky shimmered with countless stars, and he felt a quiet echo of the ones he had just imagined. "How long will this journey last?" Eli asked quietly. "As long as you need it to," the cat replied, "which is never as long as you fear." The boat began to turn, slowly, almost lazily, as if drifting on a thought that had just changed direction. In the distance, faint lights appeared, a line of warm glimmers like sleepy eyes opening in the dark. "I'm afraid," Eli whispered, "that when I go back, all the worries will still be waiting." The cat stepped lightly down from the railing and curled up beside him, warm, steady, comfortably real. "They might be," it said softly, "but you won't be the same person who left them, and that makes a difference." The boat drifted closer to the distant shore. The shapes of the harbor began to form again, softened, gentle, as if seen through a veil of quiet rain, even though the sky was clear. "When you lie down tonight," the cat said, "try this. Instead of asking, 'Did I do enough today?' ask, 'Can I allow myself to rest, just for now?' And when your thoughts try to crowd in again, remember, you've seen them from the outside. You watched them drifting in glass bottles. They are not you. They are just visitors." Eli listened, and the words settled into him, not like rules, not like demands, but gentle possibilities. Small doors he could open whenever he wished. The harbor lights grew brighter as they approached. He could see the old woman again, waiting on her bench, her face warm with a patient, knowing smile. "I suppose," Eli said quietly, "this is where I get off." "For tonight," the cat agreed softly. "The harbor will be here whenever the night feels too heavy again. You may not always remember the way, but your feet will." Eli reached down and scratched behind the cat's ears. It closed its eyes with a soft, grateful sigh, leaning into the touch. "Will you be here too?" Eli asked. "Where there are small, wandering thoughts in need of company," the cat murmured, "I am never far." The boat glided up to the dock with barely a whisper. The lantern dimmed, not extinguished, just softened, like eyes closing for sleep. Deep, peaceful pause. Extended her hand, steady, warm, as if she'd been holding a little light just for him. Eli stepped back onto the dock. The blanket had disappeared from his lap, but the feeling of it, that soft, grounding weight, lingered in his muscles, like a memory of being held. "How was your voyage?" she asked. "Quieter than my bedroom," Eli said, with a small, sleepy smile. "But I think I can bring some of that quiet back with me." She nodded, pleased. "That's all the harbor ever tries to give. You still live your own life. We just remind you that you don't have to carry all of it at once." They walked back along the pier together. The unusual boats swayed gently, their lanterns dimming as if preparing for their own sleep. Eli read the plaques again as they passed, feeling a quiet companionship with all the unseen travelers those boats were meant for. The ones who missed someone, the ones holding secrets, the ones learning how to be parents, or how to be alone. At the edge of the harbor, Eli paused and turned back for one last look. The boats, the lights, the shimmering water, all of it felt like a story he might someday doubt, the way people doubt their dreams in the morning. But for now, in this gentle stretch of night, it was real enough. "Thank you," he said to the woman. "Rest well," she whispered, "and remember, when you lie awake at night, you are never as alone as you feel. The world is full of sleepers breathing with you. The ocean, the wind, the trees, they are all on your side." Warmth spread through Eli's chest, not from any lantern, not from any blanket, but from the simple kindness of being reminded that he did not face the night alone. He walked back through the sleeping town. The streets were the same, but his footsteps felt lighter. The night air still smelled faintly of salt. A dog barked once, then settled down again, as if resuming a dream. A traffic light changed from red to green for no one at all. When he reached his apartment, he climbed the stairs quietly and slipped inside. The ceiling fan ticked softly above him. His bed, with its familiar wrinkles and worn pillow, waited by the window. He lay down and turned off the lamp. Darkness folded gently around the room. For a moment, the old habit returned, his mind searching for unfinished tasks, replaying conversations, poking at loose ends. But then he remembered the harbor, the boats, the bottles, the stars, the cat. He took a slow breath. "Not everything all at once," he murmured. "Tonight is just for resting." He thought of the coffee cup with his name on it, a small star. The sunset, another star. The gentle rocking of the boat, the soft weight of the blanket, the cat's calm voice. In the sky of his mind, tiny lights began to appear, one by one. Outside, the ocean breathed in and out, steady and sure. Eli's thoughts grew softer, their edges less sharp. The questions didn't vanish, but drifted farther away, like bottles sinking gently beneath the surface of the sea. His body grew heavier in the best possible way, like a stone settling into warm sand. Somewhere between one breath and the next, his worries loosened their grip. And without forcing, without counting, without chasing sleep, Eli slipped quietly, gently into dreams.